In 2005, two Wisconsin brothers founded a silencer research and development company called Hearing Protection LLC. After escaping Hillary Clinton's dangerously mismanaged State Department security program, these brothers went full tilt into standing up their own firearms company. Today, still under the watchful eye of government regulatory agencies, they survive as entrepreneurs of fortune. If you have a problem, if you have shitty kit, and you're in desperate need of an upgrade, maybe you can buy Griffin Armament.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Dwell Time Podcast. Got an interesting episode today on a new product announcement. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but no sick call for me today. Showed up to have a great day at work, which was awesome. Today, Austin's in studio today. He's going to be talking about a new product that he designed, giving you the background of it, which is pretty interesting. And it's an exciting product for us here because it was a really challenging product. And it's a product that's packed full of really innovative features and really enhances the overall experience of the AR-15 in a kind of shocking way. So Austin, why don't you take over and introduce the product quickly?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the director of product development here at Griffin, and basically this is our Enhanced Gas Pocket BCG product. And as far as history of the product, this kind of goes back to 17 years old. I was running a rimfire conversion kit and with a suppressor, and basically put a brass catcher on the gun and realized that the brass catcher really reduced the sound of the suppressed rimfire conversion kit. And around that time, I thought of a concept of, I wonder if the little ports on the BCG create noise, and if we could punch them to a pocket. And of course, that having ideas doesn't really do anything for you if you don't have any manufacturing capabilities. So come forward, a lot of time, and chronologically in 2012, we designed AR-15s for another company. And in 2016, we started our own line of AR-15s. And several times we were starved by BCGs, for BCGs by vendors during AR crazes. So essentially when politically Americans were buying AR-15s really in great numbers, we might run out of AR-15 BCGs and find ourselves unable to sell rifles due to not having the component.
Yeah, that's like the hardest part of really delivering the AR-15 in a consistent way to the public, is having a streamlined vendor base, and then the internal manufacturing that you're doing as a company, supporting the product. And, you see it kind of from the more serious companies that they kind of take on more of that burden of manufacturing over time, which is essentially what you're doing.
Yeah, the real miracle in gun building is that there's so many little parts, kind of like building a car. And if you're out one component, you can't ship a product because a product is the sum of its parts.
It could be a tiny little spring.
Yeah, it could be the buffer retaining, detent retaining spring. And if you don't have that part, you don't have a gun. And so we strategically identified that we wanted as an objective to make our own BCGs down the road. Of course, being a busy company, that's what we call high-hanging fruit. And the BCG, we thought was a complicated project, but really it's way more complicated than a lot of things in manufacturing. And these are the kind of parts that you have to design whole programs behind, and for both deburring, for heat treating throughput, for inspection protocols in manufacturing. And so basically, these parts are, not for the faint of heart. And
yeah, it was interesting seeing different machines coming in over time, like Austin just mentioned, to support the program such that the quality is kind of retained throughout the production runs from one to another. The inspection processes I thought were kind of the most interesting.
Yeah, we have deburring equipment that we need to figure out processes to deburr the parts and different things. But essentially, when the project was devised, the concept was, and this is we're not starting this game. This game has been around for a long time, which is basically a bunch of people who are fans of the AR-15 spend a lot of their time trying to figure out how to put together the most feature-packed components they possibly can to make the best performing components possible for the AR-15 fanboys. And basically, as AR-15 fanboys ourselves, we knew there were a lot of technologies out there, and a lot of those technologies open source at a point. And so basically, we understood that our BCGs were not going to be as affordable as the kind of product that's mass produced by people who decide they're going to dedicate their lives to a bolt carrier or dedicate their lives to a bolt. And there are vendors out there like that who essentially, they might make a bolt carrier, a bolt, a barrel extension, and those three parts, are their bread and butter. And they might have hydromatic machines where they've got 12 spindles, and the parts are kicked out at the speed of the slowest operation because there's 12 tools in cut making the parts the whole time. And they have, dedicated grinding departments and all kinds of things.
And there's not a lot of companies that do that, but there's a few.
There's a few,
yeah.
Right. And essentially, when we looked at the problem, we were like, why don't we just, I'm gonna be honest with everybody and say, I was a little naive, and I thought, let's make the product out of a stronger material than is conventionally available. And we looked at materials, and 17-4 stainless steel, kind of a product material that we do 80% of our work in here, we feel pretty comfortable with. And we thought, well, why can't we make a bolt and bolt carrier out of material that's 20% stronger than Carpenter 158, and that is harder to machine by virtue of having more nickel and chrome content, because we're familiar with that material. And it really made the project tough. And basically, we decided to put a bunch of stuff together, but in the process of doing this, we're buying tooling. So, our concept was make the part in a live tool lathe. And essentially that requires a tool holder package. It's like, it's probably like 75, 100 grand of live tools to make the part, because you've got, holders with 2 drills and holders with, the ability to cut on an angle with a live tool. And, several pockets had double tools in them. We probably had 23 tools in a 12 station turret on one of the 2 turrets in the machine. And in the process of, designing the part and tool pathing the part and also getting ready to make the parts, we were contacted by KAK, and it was just an odd request. It's like we're not a testing house, so like we're not silencer research. John Titsworth was a guy who, like Al Paulson, tested product on B&K meters for people.
This was like a long time
ago.
Yeah.
And so there have been a few independent testing authorities in the industry, and we're not one of them, but KAK reached out to us and said, hey, we've got a bolt carrier, and it was this K-spec BCG they wanted us to test, and essentially they had taken a pair of gas ports from the right side, moved them to the bottom of the bolt carrier, and they did that to reduce gas in the face with sound suppressors, and that was how they were advertising the BCG at the time. But apparently they had been suspicious that there were possible sound reduction benefits, and they had tried to test it with Radio Shack meters, and the Radio Shack meter testing was really inconclusive. So they needed to use more laboratory-grade equipment. Of course, the B&K Pulse is like a $40,000 system, and they reached out to me and asked me, and I want to do favors for people at times if I can. I like building, decent relationships in the industry. And I said, sure, send the product. And I didn't have a lot of time. I honestly carved out time to do this test.
Did they pay you for it or no?
No, it's free.
Okay.
And essentially, my thoughts were, hey, I've got this PSR 5 and I really like the product and I thought it had low ear noise, but it was the ear noise that it had was slightly higher than the AEM 5 current generation, which is different than the Ops 12 model that preceded it.
So wait, no money, right? They didn't pay you for it. You didn't ask for money?
No, and I also don't advertise testing. So essentially, I'm going out of my way to test something for somebody who just requested of me, like I'm some kind of public service.
And you didn't sign anything or anything? There was no contractual agreements or anything like that?
No, if there had been a non-compete or an NDA to sign, that would have been a deal breaker, because if I don't like to box myself in it as an engineer, and if I'm going to be looking at technology that people are specifically stipulating, we want to rein in your ability to be, free in an area, then I would say, well, if there's no monetary benefit, then that's dramatic. Then I want to stay the hell away from that kind of thing, because I do product development and I like to be free to do whatever is legal within the industry.
Sure.
With regard to product development.
Okay.
And basically, I didn't, for lack of time, I grabbed an 18-inch SPR, which happened, later when we were testing this product, we realized that it turns out the 18-inch SPR is a really cherry-picked gun, a platform for testing this product itself, stuff that works like this. And essentially the highest performance platform we could have grabbed. And so we tested the product and we achieved a 7.5 decibel reduction and something like a 220% increase in dosing of the right ear. So in other words, the product, the K-Spec BCG, proved to enhance the ability of a shooter to shoot more rounds during the week safely for the right ear inside the dosing limits. And at that time, we had a number of technologies on the table. It's like we're looking at lug radiuses, lug corner radiuses. We're looking at making the BCG, the bolt, not have to have gas rings. We're looking at enhancing the web strength of the bolt to keep it from breaking at the cam pin. We were looking at our gas pocket idea from when I was a kid, because I was curious and wanted to go that direction and see if that could produce a reduction in sound, because I had I know through our compensators, their tactical compensator has little holes in it, and the little holes produce high noise levels. Like we're talking, I want to say 170 dB on guns that maybe were 164, 172 dB maybe on guns that were 164 muzzle at the 1 meter left position. And so we know that high peak noise can happen through little gas ports. And so we prototyped shortly thereafter our own gas pocket carrier, which puts a pocket in the left side of the carrier that is defined by a close operative association of the outside diameter of the BCG to the upper receiver itself. And so the upper receiver becomes, in essence, a very limited, probably 1 or 2 millisecond pressure vessel while we shoot gas in a forward direction that hits a carbon scraping surface on the BCG and is redirected downward. And that pocket essentially gives it time to expand and reduce its impact to right ear sound. And when we tested our product, it actually reduced sound by 10.5 dB right ear.
Which is insane.
Yeah, which is
it's kind of mind blowing. When we first started shooting it, I had never had that experience in my life, having shot AR-15s my whole life, and it kind of made the AR-15 go from what you'd normally expect with the relatively large back pressure to like a 22 long rifle or like a suppressed bolt action. It was pretty profound.
Yeah, I mean, obviously already, I was aware of the fact that the idea that KK had already a profound impact to sound reduction of the system. The idea that I had when I was a kid, even more profound by a serious amount. The decibel scale being logarithmic, where like 10 decibels is 10 times less sound. 10.5 is more than 10 times less sound. So with the SPR, we were dropping right ear noise down to like 130 dB, and left ear noise was below 130 dB. And we're essentially experiencing, like Evan said, like shooting a bolt action with a suppressor.
Yeah, it was wild.
We're shooting an AR-15.
Super wild. And then we started kind of rotating in people in the business, some people, just to say, hey, check this out. What do you think? And kind of the reaction from every single one of them was like shock and awe, because we do have a lot of gun people in the company, people that have experienced the AR-15 over the years. So it's kind of a product that almost is magical to the AR-15, in my opinion.
Yeah, and at the time we were really enthusiastic about it, and bring it forward to the current time. And I mean, those are like, 10.5 dB is like 350 or 360% dosing for the right ear. It's like enormous. So if you could fire 15 rounds a week, you can fire 45, and it's like, well, it goes from like
and you're talking
hog
about
hunting for a couple hours to hog hunting for the whole weekend for no impact with no ear protection worn.
Yeah, and you're mentioning the Army standard.
Yeah,
for testing,
using the auditory hazard assessment algorithm for humans, the AHA method.
Yeah, that you see in the Griffin videos.
Army
and stuff.
Research Labs.
Yeah, if you check out the Griffin videos, you'll see that stuff. So.
Yeah, because we had to develop a system of dosing, because essentially the market became more aware of dosing, and that's where, we were looking at peak as an industry prior to that, and now we look at peak in dosing, and we look at peak in multiple regimes, unweighted, A-weighted. And essentially what we didn't know at that time, though, is that our BCG product at the 10.5 dB on the 18-inch rifle gas system impacts a mid-length gas system to the tune of like 8.2 dB and more like 225% of dosing. And the carbine, it impacts at something like 3 decibel drop right ear for also a similar 220% of dosing, because those levels are higher. So essentially, what we're talking about is a product that creates like a paradigm shift at the rifle length gas level, and then reduces in its ability to perform for each shorter gas tube length, to the extent that pistol gas tubes don't seem to have any benefit whatsoever.
But the carbine at 3.5 decibels is still a pretty decent advantage. I mean, compared to where people used to play with, heavy buffers, heavy spring weights, things like that. It's still doing more than that.
I lost that piece in the chronology, and that was the bridge from the 22 conversion kit and brass catcher to the gas pocket idea. Was at the time it was really in vogue to play with buffer weights, and we played with. I was one of these AR-15. I've been an AR-15 enthusiast my entire life. It's the most fun platform for me to play with. Basically, it's the most accessorizable rifle that is sold in the United States, and essentially, I've run slashes, heavy buffers, and I ran the rate reducer that was sold by Matt Atkinson through AAC. I've run H1 through H3 buffers to try to ascertain the difference, and essentially, you tell yourself a lie and you say, hey, that did something, but on a sound meter, you really didn't accomplish anything with the buffer weight for reducing the sound. Nothing
actually
measurable. Right. So it might change the tone or something of the sound to you in your mind, but it's nothing like this kind of product.
Yeah, and that's not to say that on like a 9mm AR-15 that doesn't work, because the 9mm AR-15 is the flat breech face. It's not doing any unlocking. It's not the direct impingement system, right? So like a 9mm AR-15 would benefit from the heavy spring and buffer, right?
The 9mm. What I've seen of the 9mm is that definitely it has a very heavy bolt carrier, the straight blowback 9. I don't know exactly why. I guess Colt believed that a heavy operating mass would have some effect to keep the gun locked longer. The only thing we noticed with the gun was that using a markedly heavier spring smoothed the recoil characteristic a lot. So like we used something like an AR-10 carbine spring in our 9mm gun with a very heavy buffer, and the difference that made between AR-15 plus 15 and AR-10 carbine was huge. Like the buffer stopped tapping hard the back of the buffer tube because the spring was doing more work. The rate of fire increased, of course, but the gun shoots very smooth.
Right, but I'm just saying for the layperson that isn't a huge AR-15 person, this product does not apply to like a 9mm AR due to the gas system.
Oh, of course not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have no gas through a tube.
Right.
There's no port release.
Right. So this is AR-15 specific for the 223.
I would like to hope that it's compatible with the 308 AR-10 as well. But I definitely know that it's not a great candidate for 300 black unless the 300 black gun can be made that gets off of the pistol gas tube.
Okay.
Which I know is pretty key to the gun being reliable. So I don't know if...
So the best application is AR-15.
The best application currently known is AR-15, and I think the AR-10 will provide a similar benefit.
Cool.
But basically, to get back to the story, we punched a provisional patent on our gas pocket BCG idea, but the BCG has many other technologies in it to try to make people happy that want to buy a product that improves upon previous product.
Right.
And so essentially,
it's like if you're making it anyways, you might as well make it the way you want it.
Right. And with all available market IP that's not protected at this time. And so we put 30 thou lug corners on both left and right sides of each locking lug. We put a 40 thou radius.
What does that do? The extra
radius increases the lug footprint for lug shear. And
so it makes the lug stronger?
Yeah, it makes the lug stronger.
Okay.
And the 40 thou radius at the rear of the lugs essentially replaces one that's about 15 thou, I want to say, size on the mil-spec print. And that drops the FEA minimum safety factor in half from 40 thou. So if you go to 15, the mil-spec, this product's twice as strong natively by the 40 thou lug radius in the corner. We also, had a theory, and it's like not all your ideas come through to fruition and perform. And I thought if I had a gas ringless bolt with multiple flanges that I could have a cascading effect and diminish the sound a little bit by extending the dwell of the gas reaching the gas pocket. And that didn't work, but I knew the STG 44 and M14 were ringless examples, as well as the AK-47 examples of gas operated designs. And so we wanted to design the bolt to be able to operate without gas rings. That successfully happens. However, in our testing, the sound is the best
with the rings.
With the rings installed.
So you could pull the rings off and it would still operate?
Yeah, but it would operate at a slightly diminished level of total right ear sound reduction when a muzzle-mounted silencer is attached to the rifle.
Okay.
But that's important because the rifle itself, the predominant noise at your right ear when you fire unsuppressed is the muzzle noise. And when you put the silencer on the rifle on the muzzle, the predominant noise becomes either the gas port in the BCG or the direct blowback through the bore of the rifle if the suppressor is really high back pressure.
Okay.
Or the barrel's very short, like maybe 6 inches.
So if you put a hunting designed silencer on an AR-15, when a lot of these hunting silencers have tighter bores, kind of for bolt actions and stuff like that, they don't have as much of the back pressure reducing features, right?
We did test the M4 2000, which is one of the highest back pressure silencers I'm aware of. And the M4 2000, when shot, in eye relief of an optic, where you'd mount one as a shooter, which is to say near nose to charging handle with the AR-15. It performed 149 dB right ear, which is insanely loud. It's only suppressing sound like maybe 3 decibels, 4 decibels from unsuppressed with the suppressor attached. And with our bolt carrier, we were able to get a 3 decibel noise reduction. We're not using that in marketing because going from 149 to 140, 5.5 isn't exemplary in that it doesn't become ear safe. So it's a bad example of a use case for getting better safety with your system, because the M4000 is just a pig for ear noise. Very good muzzle can.
So you've talked about the bolt for the most part. Any other enhancements to the bolt itself, or does that pretty much cover it?
We have
to the bolt itself.
Okay, the bolt itself.
You talked about the geometrical improvements.
We have an enhancement of surface area at the cam pin through the use of a smaller diameter cam pin, and these ideas are the best ideas of everybody before us. So essentially,
what is the advantage to that?
The advantage of using a slightly smaller cam pin and a modified firing pin is getting more surface thickness at the web between the bolt OD and the cam pin ID. Okay. And that prevents shearing the bolt in half, which is one of the common failure mechanisms of the bolt.
But that's like really high round count, correct? The shearing? Typically?
I mean, in certain bolts, some 9310 bolts can go at 6,500 rounds.
Okay.
And so, also one of the failure mechanisms of the bolt, I believe personally, is peening the cam pin with a ball bearing. You put a ball bearing on top or something, smash it, and you prevent the cam pin from being able to be installed from both sides, in the conventional mil-spec bolt. But I think at that moment you basically start a tear at the web that eventually propagates to the bolt. And
because you just put stress into that little area of the circle.
Stress.
Yeah, and that's a circle.
And it's a thin circle.
Right.
So we increase the OD and decrease the ID of the hole. So increase the OD around the hole and decrease the ID of the hole. And we basically, from 2 directions, increase thickness.
Put a little meat on there.
Yeah, and use a stronger material. And then we have a multiple diameter cam pin, and it still only goes together one way. But you don't have to put a ball bearing on top and start a fracture that's going to eventually shear the bolt in half.
You're respecting the metal a little bit.
Yeah, and we put dual ejectors in the system because if one ejector fails to stroke, then you can still eject a case.
Yeah, the dual ejectors are neat.
Yeah, we replace all the springs with 17.7. One of the things I found when piss pounding silencers to death is basically that you bake the springs, and the springs, when they get baked and take a little bit of a set in music wire, they
don't spring back.
Yeah, they essentially stop ejecting reliably, and you get like 4 failures to extract in a 30-round magazine.
Because the compression stroke becomes bullshit, right?
Yeah, there's like a set the spring takes, and then the levels go from like 11 pounds to like 5.5 or 6 pounds of force, and your spring's essentially been killed. And the 17.7 has a 700 degree operating range, where the music wire has like 200 degree operating range.
So like 3 times more heat resistant springs.
Right. So more heat resistant springs. That about finishes it for the bolt. Mm-hmm. So we have our special firing pin and cam pin for the things we already talked about. We got a shoulder at the rear of the carrier key
and
junction.
Which model of the BCG is this?
This is the Gas Pocket Enhanced Complete BCG.
Because that's the one that has the proprietary firing pin, right?
Yeah, it has a proprietary bolt, firing pin, cam pin, and gas key. The other model, here is the Enhanced Carrier only. And the Enhanced Carrier has the proprietary gas key, and it is a proprietary bolt carrier, but it can take your mil-spec parts. So you could take your BCG, strip it down, and reassemble your bolt and firing pin and retainer into the BCG product.
So it's like the premium. You still get the sound reductions, performance benefits the same, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But you're missing out on the Gucci bolt.
So you lose the bolt, the firing pin, cam pin, the shortened buffer, and proprietary spring
Right.
that allows you to stroke the extra 1/4 inch. You can, of course, use the buffer and spring to get the extra 1/4 inch of stroke, and that might soften your recoil a little bit. But you lose the extended cam pin track, and we have a 60 thou additional throw on the bolt to get it unlocked. And essentially that adds a little bit of dwell time, so your system has a little more time to come down in peak pressure before unlocking. And that takes some stress off the lugs, takes some stress off the barrel extension, as well as might reduce the amount of back pressure that you experience as a shooter.
So it's like a softer unlocking situation.
Yeah, like a delayed unlocking. So the carrier has to move an eighth of an inch before it begins to unlock here, where here it moves about 60 thousandths.
Okay.
So that's very, very short amount of milliseconds of time. It might be a couple 2 milliseconds.
But both of the buffers have the
But it might double. It doubles probably the duration.
both of,
like that.
or both of the bolt carriers have the anti-tilt feature.
Yeah, they both have the 980 anti-tilt ring, which we found that as your gun wears, the carrier's tilting, and this surface is beginning to cut your aluminum on your upper receiver, and your bolt lugs are coming up and hitting the top of the barrel extension lug recesses.
And you can actually see the wear on the parts.
Right.
I mean, for the people listening to the podcast, if you have a lot of rounds on your standard BCG, you can pull it and you can actually see the finish wear on the bottom of the BCG in the back where that track is, as well as the top of the
Yeah, and
lugs.
obviously we want to hold things concentric, so it's better to have, we don't make this feature an inch, and the reason why is because a lot of lower receivers don't even have their lower receiver threads in the middle of the lower receiver, so we don't want to make a component that won't even cycle. But this 980 diameter is a compromise that basically will cycle, but will keep will reduce about 66% of carrier tilt
Of the slop.
So the lugs aren't going enormously upward into the sky, and that matters more when the bolt is stroked out further in front, because you have 60 thou of additional running in the cam pin track.
And then you also have this interesting feature on the right bottom side, all with all the cuts on that. Can you describe what that is?
we have a relief cut. I'm one of the unlucky people who's had one of my guns blow up while I was shooting it, and I was shooting it with bad ammo from a manufacturer that actually sent us some co-marketing ammo, and I'm not going to name them because that's kind of is classless as sending ammunition that is defective to people for marketing. But blowing that gun up, you see that the carrier is really thin at what we call the track cuts on the bottom. Where they meet the bore, there's not a lot of material here. There might be like 40 thousandths of material. And so the stronger the carrier can be, the less likely the carrier is to blow up. But also, if we make this chamfer at the front face of the carrier a little smaller, then it doesn't become a funnel sucking so much of that pressure. Because what happens when you have a high pressure round of ammunition is you have what's called a case head failure. The case head fails at the extractor because that's the least supported part of the bolt and chamber area, and essentially after that gas leaves the cartridge case, it comes backward, enters the carrier at extremely high pressure, splits the carrier, blows up the upper receiver, essentially bulges it, and a lot of components get destroyed in the process. Essentially your barrel's ruined from both lug setback, and
the upper receiver sometimes rips apart.
Upper receiver is destroyed. The bolt carrier is destroyed. The bolt's destroyed from lug setback. And what we were thinking was this pressure relief cut hopefully gives that gas at the extractor recess a place to go, so that it doesn't split the carrier, maybe doesn't blow up the upper receiver. It's like whether or not that feature will 100% work for you. We can't say, but it's better to give gas a place.
Definitely better than nothing.
A safe place to go.
Yeah, it's an escape in that situation. And then talk about the other geometrical cuts on the right side there that you can see.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we've got a lot of people like there's a history of essentially one of the reasons the Air 10 wasn't accepted instead of the Air 15 was because when it was being tested, the military was pushing the M14, and also the military was aware of the performance of the FN FAL. And FN had a lot of time to work with the FN FAL to make it as reliable as possible under a myriad of climate, and conditional regimes. And one of the features they integrated into the FAL was carbon cutters on the bolt. And essentially they put, V-shaped cuts in the side of the bolt carrier of the FAL that allowed sand to have a place to go. It's a feature that I believe was taken from the Sterling, which is kind of like Britain's PTSD reaction from all their veterans who got completely fucked over by the Sten gun, which is one of my favorite guns, but in reality, the Sten, had a very unreliable magazine and had a lot of malfunction issues. And so the British...
I just looked it up. It said the FAL was designed between 1947 and 53, and then mass production began in 53.
Okay, yeah, but the sand cutter
pretty
feature...
Pretty old gun.
I want to say the sand cutter feature
came
later,
later,
maybe in the late 50s.
Yeah.
As they're really trying to enhance the reliability.
Maybe for Africa. Who knows?
Yeah, but this, I believe they took the feature from the Sterling, and the Sterling's like a Cadillac submachine gun response to the inadequacies of the Sten, which is one of my more favorite submachine guns. But I do understand that you might just pull out a Sten to demonstrate it to somebody, and it might malfunction like a son of a bitch on you, and show you how. I mean, I think there was a liberal who did something in the 70s, like when they were knocking over ROTC and stuff during the Vietnam War. Somebody, who was an unhinged liberal grabbed a Sten gun and it classically malfunctioned when they needed it and fucked them over hard. And basically that's what the Sten gun was kind of classic for. But the Sterling, the Cadillac, the inception of the carbon cutter feature that goes to the FAL, that basically is one of the reasons the AR-10's not adopted. And eventually it filters down to AR-15 BCGs. People like the feature, so we thought, why not add the cuts? And
so that helps scrape carbon potentially off of the...
Right. We actually have another carbon scraper in the bolt, which is the front side of the pocket. Because we know we're depositing carbon on the wall, the upper receiver. We're carving it with this surface here and dropping it, into the magazine.
So every time it strokes, it's essentially self-cleaning in a way.
Right. And this pocket is all the diameter of the rails, because essentially we're trying to seal that as well as we can.
And we'll probably get this question because it's one of the questions I had early on in the product development, and I was able to see it for myself as we did the prototyping and the testing. But this pocket is redirecting the gas and carbon into the magazine kind of itself. And so one of the questions was, is that going to affect reliability of the platform, since you're essentially kind of dirtying up your ammo before it's introduced. And we found in our testing that it really had no perceptible decrease in the reliability.
Yeah, I ran the BCG 3,000 rounds, and I about just lubed it every 500, something like that. And it ran 3,000 rounds with zero malfunctions, which was pretty impressive. So I was happy with the performance of the gun. I mean, as I say that, I didn't run it completely. I had my son, shooting it, and I was loading magazines for him, and he shot like a champ for hours and hours, and he was really impressed. He thought the gun was like a sniper rifle because it had a scope, and it was his introduction to center fire ammunition, and really he left it really impressed with the gun.
Nice, that's cool.
Hammer and steel all day.
Any other features you want to touch on that we haven't talked about? I know we covered quite a bit there.
Yeah, so shortened carrier key, nickel boron coating on that. We've got a gas nitride with a black magnetite for corrosion resistance.
Yeah, the finish looks really nice.
Yeah, we have a plasma nitrided bolt, and so that has a 9.5 hour heat treat in a vacuum heat treat oven, and it culminates in the black magnetite formation on the outer surfaces. And we saw that to be very wear resistant. Of course, 17.4 itself is natively very wear resistant. And in prototyping, we tested some of the things with the BCGs had no coating at all. They were just H900 and they ran like a champ.
One of my observations just here at the company about this product, which is kind of funny, is that from a consumer perspective, if you're looking to buy one of these, as an end user of an AR-15, it's a really exciting product and it's really high quality and the coatings are super nice, so it's really attractive. But from the internal people here, all the head smashing, the head banging and all working through all these problems and stuff, to get it made properly. I know that it's kind of a pain in the ass, and
yeah, I really hate the parts.
Yeah,
like, I don't like the parts.
So people are not really people here are not really fond of this product, right? Is what I'm trying to say. But we've you said how long did it take to develop this?
This product was in development about I'd say 9 months, and it was in manufacturing for 5.5, which is an embarrassing amount of time. Doing something that you've never done before. It's the most singularly expensive thing we've done as a manufacturing company, and the prices you'll probably see are outrageous, and the cost is nearly what we're selling them for, or maybe more than what we're selling them for, and we're hoping to get more efficient and better processing later, and improve the ability to supply this. And I've also got a run of parts with a vendor happening to get people this gas pocket feature at a more affordable costing because
we're not the perfect place to make this stuff.
Right, we're not the perfect place to make this stuff, and we also have learned deburring processes through this, and we've learned some inspection processes. We bought a Renishaw Equator, we bought Verisurf. That's just a fucking hole for time, and people that are really expensive spend days and days programming inspection on that kind of equipment.
Yeah, so it's been a pain in the ass here, like you said, due to the fact that there was a lot of investment and learning on it, and a lot of kind of time lost and wasted, and parts lost and wasted.
We had to develop with a vendor a machine just to stake the product. Is a kind of annoyance that we've had with this product.
Right. There's a lot of like weird fixturing, just assembly tools and things like that. Additional personnel were hired to support
and I've
it.
become aware of the kind of things that happen in competitive BCG manufacture. Like one of the people I talked to has a machine that's $400,000 or $500,000 that can assemble 6 or 10 bolts in a minute, and I don't have that machine, so
right.
These don't utilize that kind of advantage.
Right. Yeah, because the bull carrier group, if it's a mil spec version, which is 99% of them, it's a commodity market like bars of soap at Walmart almost. I mean, so many of them are made. Right.
Yeah, there are companies that make 60,000, 120,000 a month.
Yeah, which is mind blowing.
Right.
So yeah, this is kind of
the money in AR is at the bottom level of quality. The lower quality that you can make the thing for the lowest price, that's where you're going to get people rich. You're not going to make people rich by making high quality parts. High quality parts is a suffering zone where things cost more than people think they're worth. They barely get sold at all. That's kind of the place where you're at.
Right, but this is kind of a fun project that you wanted to do, and
yeah, I mean, we objectively wanted to be able to make bolt carriers. I don't think that this really achieved our goals because we aren't as efficient as we want to be. So we still have
a lot of work to do,
distance to go, and work to do to get efficient with this product. And if we can get efficient with this product, we'll perhaps have achieved our goal, which I'd love to be able to say I did, but I haven't done it.
So, but I mean, customers will enjoy a great product at the launch of the product.
Right.
However, us as a company, we're gonna have to step up and learn, over time, how do we make this thing better? Because it is a product that we want to keep in the catalog, I'm guessing, for a long time.
It's investing money. Essentially, I've got to invest money in deburring fixturing and deburring processes, and I have to invest money in inspection processes, and I have to invest money in, I've already invested a lot of money in different things, and essentially greater training of people and devices to allow us to put tools in the machine more precisely where we want them, and axes such as Y and a lathe, stuff like that. It might ultimately mean the purchase of like a mill with the 4-up indexer or something, product from
but it's
Sudocoma,
not right. But this is not a product that you're going to abandon. right? Because I mean, if
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a patent in process, and that with every patent, there's a responsibility of the patent holder to try to make the technology that has improved something for humanity available for people for an affordable price. And I tried to adhere to that and make the product available for an affordable price.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, that basically wraps it up. I think people are going to be really stoked about this product, especially when they have to actually use it in person, because the difference in sound, from a suppressed AR-15 with a standard bolt carrier to this is pretty wild. I mean, it almost makes no point to have the crazy low back pressure cans, just because of the weird, crazy difference. That
And some of those low back pressure cans we can improve 3 decibels, which might be enough to move them from combat quiet enough to not completely deafen yourself in your lifetime to maybe more like I could sport hunt with this thing and get away with it.
Right. But yeah, definitely check one out if you can. If a buddy buys one or something, definitely check it out. I'm really stoked for the product. And I think you did a great job, and I think the people at Griffin did a great job. And I think it'll just be time before we get more efficient with it. And it's a product that I'm sure will be in the catalog for a long time.
Yeah, and there was some fun ahead, and there was a lot of learning to be had, and a lot of that was a humbling experience.
Yeah. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend, like it, follow us on all of our social medias. Also, we are opening a retail showroom at Griffin Armament in the near future, I believe like next week. So I'm really excited about that. We've been working on that for a couple years now, honestly, as part of a larger expansion. But now if you want to come to Griffin to actually put your hands on product and talk to customer service reps in person, you can, which is cool. So whether you're passing through on vacation, or maybe you live, within reasonable distance, we'd love to actually open the doors for you and communicate with you and show you what we do. So thank you for checking out this episode of Dwell Time, and we'll catch you next time.